Welcome to the Muscle Building Mastery podcast, where guys that want to build muscle come to learn how to do it properly. We understand that there's more to building muscle than mindlessly throwing weights around and chugging mass gainer shakes. We're not interested in quick fixes or anabolic assistance. We're interested in mastering the art, science and skill set required to stack on real muscle and strength. My name's Andy Clements, and for the last 12 years I've devoted my life to figuring out how guys like us who don't have amazing genetics, don't have 5 hours a day to spend in the gym, and don't want to take steroids as a shortcut can build insane amounts of muscle and strength in weeks and months, not years and decades. This podcast is the result of all the lessons I've learned along the way, and it will give you the blueprint to building more muscle in less time. To get you started, head to www.musclebuildingmastery.net to download your free 6-week workout plan. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Muscle Building Mastery podcast. My name's Andy Clements, and today I want to talk to you about how to improve your mind-muscle connection. But before I do, I want to tell you about my online course, Training Mastery, which will teach you everything you need to know to build your training for building muscle, losing body fat, building a great physique from the ground up. So you can access that for less than the price of a single personal training session by going to www.trainingmastery.net/join, JOIN. So with that in mind, let's go ahead with the episode. So today, like I say, I want to talk to you about the mind-muscle connection. This is something that gets spouted about a lot in muscle building circles, but what does it actually mean? What, like when you boil down it to an actual concept, is a mind-muscle connection? And a mind-muscle connection, in layman's terms, all it really means is neurological feedback to let you know which area of your body is under tension. So it's a communication system between the body and the brain. And the body will send signals up through the nervous system, or the central nervous system, the spinal cord, to the brain, and give you a feeling to let you know which area of your body is under tension and is working. And that feeling will be a feeling of contraction, a feeling of burn, whatever that feeling is. And in English, all it basically means to improve your mind-muscle connection is to feel the muscle, right? And this is what we all sort of chase. We chase the feeling, the muscle, because then we know if we can feel the muscle while we're training, we know it's working. We get a good connection between our brain and the muscle that we are working. And this is something that does take practice, okay? So I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about how to cultivate this mind-muscle connection. But I want you, before I go on, just to know that this does take practice. It takes, if you're a complete beginner and if you're just about to start the gym, or you've only done a few sessions, or you're quite new to this sort of thing, don't get discouraged if you don't feel every muscle straight away, because it's normal. Like, it took me a long time, and a lot of learning and some coaching and all this stuff to try and to make some progress with this whole mind-muscle connection thing and actually feeling the muscle. But that's the goal. You want to be able to make sure that you can feel every single muscle in your body that you train. And you ultimately want to be able to contract those muscles on demand, like at this point now, I've been training for such a long time, and this is nothing special about me. It just happens when you've been training for a long time, you're doing things right. A lot of people can contract their muscles without, moving them. They can contract them isometrically or statically in one position, and they can just switch them on. And that's a neurological mechanism. That's something that, you're using your brain, using that mind-muscle connection through the nervous system to switch muscles on demand. Now think about this. If you could switch a muscle on demand, right, without moving it, then if you employ that skill to switch the muscle on, and you can feel it while you're under load, while you're going through an exercise, right? So if you can contract and squeeze your bicep, for example, before you move, and then continually squeeze that bicep as you go through the motion of a bicep curl or a barbell curl, some sort of curling movement, how much more muscle fiber recruitment do you think you would get from that particular way of doing things? A lot, right? You'd get a lot more muscle fiber recruitment from doing things that way than you would from just going through the motions, right? Because what most people do is they just go through the motions, and outwardly it looks like you're doing it right. It looks like you're doing it with good form. You can use great form, and you can do things right from the outward perspective, but from the inward perspective that actually matters, because we're not doing things, or we shouldn't be doing things, in my opinion, for other people to look at. We're doing things to actually improve the way our body looks, feels, moves, and performs, right? So if you are going with an inward focus, then you should be focusing on this mind-muscle connection. And in my opinion, if you want a better body, if you want to get the most out of your weight training sessions, you should be going with this inner focus, right? Okay, so where was I here? So utilizing this mind-muscle connection and feeling the movement properly recruits more muscle fibers and makes the muscle work harder, right? You're getting more out of the same amount of work. So if you're contracting the bicep, contracting the glutes, the hamstrings, the chest, the lats, the calves, whatever, the abs, whatever it is, if you're contracting them and you're making that muscle switch on harder under the same amount of load, then you're going to get more out of the same amount of work. So you're going to get a bigger return on your time investment, because you are getting more out of the same amount of work. Does that make sense? So this is why I'm making a big deal out of this, right? Because you literally don't have to spend any more time in the gym. You can spend the exact same amount of time in the gym. You can do the exact same amount of sets, the exact same amount of reps, lift the exact same amount of weight. But if you switch your muscle on using your brain, using this connection that exists between your brain and your body through the nervous system, you will grow. You will achieve a greater level of muscular development throughout your body. That's like it's just biological, it's physiological, right? So hopefully this makes sense. So, this is going to provide more muscle breakdown. If you're switching your muscles on harder, it's going to provide more muscle breakdown, from the rep, from the set, and you're literally just going to get more from the workout. And I used to really struggle with this, right? This isn't me preaching. You guys know that I listen to this podcast a lot throughout the episodes. So we're on episode 62 at this point. So, there's a lot of episodes that we've done so far. And you guys know that I'll tell stories from the past when I was first starting out and the first few years I was training. And I used to struggle with a lot of things. I used to struggle with this a lot. Especially certain areas. Like there's oftentimes certain areas that you can feel better than others because you naturally move in certain ways, right? And the ways that you naturally move will be more beneficial to certain muscles than others. And we're all different in that regard. For me, the most difficult muscles that I could feel, the one that took me the longest to feel was my lats, which are the muscles on the outside of your upper back, the kind of ones that make your back look wide when they're developed, and the ones you work on pull downs and single arm rows and things like that. But I also struggle with my chest and my shoulders a lot. My arms weren't too bad, I did struggle with them in some positions, but my arms were okay. But my lats, chest, and shoulders were definitely muscles that I struggled for a very, very long time. I remember going into the gym. I used to train at a gym called the Dome Gym, which was part of a leisure centre complex when I was a teenager. And I remember maybe 19 or 20 at this point, so 8 or 9 years ago now. I remember going in and practicing a single arm row. Somebody had showed me a better way of doing a single arm row, right? And I'd never been able to feel my lats before. I'd never, ever even known what it was like to feel your lats contract. And I assumed I never would be, right? I just kind of given up all hope. And somebody had shown me. I got talking to a guy, and I paid him for a personal training session. And I had him help me a little bit, and he showed me how to do a single arm dumbbell row. And then I went away and I practiced it. And I remember going into the Dome Gym this one day, and I literally did 20 sets on each arm. Because I was so determined to get it right, because I couldn't feel it, and I was like, I'm not leaving this gym until I feel it. I was determined as hell, and it was probably, clearly I didn't have a lot else going on in my life right then. I was single and, not very busy with work. I worked behind a bar on a Friday, Saturday night sort of thing, and lived at home with my parents and stuff. So, it was, I didn't have much going on, but, you understand the point I'm trying to make here, right? I was so determined to feel it in my lats that I spent God, like probably 30 to 40 minutes just doing one exercise, just trying to feel it and feel it and feel it. And I got a little bit, but it wasn't anything like what I can feel now, because it does take time, it takes learning, it takes coaching, it takes experimenting. And after all this learning and coaching, experimenting and practice, over a number of months and years, I was able to improve my mind-muscle connection over time. I was able to feel the lats actually light up, like not just while I was doing an exercise, but whenever I wanted to. So if I could sit down now and consciously contract my lats without really moving, just by moving maybe an inch, just to switch on my lats. And that's all I have to do now while I'm training, because I can get so much more out of each rep. And that's where I want you guys to be as well. I want you guys to get the most out of each rep that you do in the gym. And so because I was able to figure out how to improve my own mind-muscle connection, I was then able to reverse engineer the process and figure out a way for everybody to do the same thing. And through my coaching programs, through my one-to-one personal training in my local area in Doncaster, and my online coaching, and my online courses nowadays, which you can get the first one of those that's available now at trainingmastery.net/join. I was able to figure out a formula to help people to improve the way that they feel each and every movement, because feeling is neurological feedback to tell you that muscle fibers are being recruited, and the more muscle fibers that are being recruited, the more the muscle is working, the more you are breaking down that muscle, and the more you're going to be able to repair and rebuild that muscle to become bigger and stronger and fuller and denser and everything else that we want when we're doing exercise. Does that make sense? So you probably want to know what the formula is, right? Well, I'm going to give you it. I'm going to give you the formula right now. There's 3 key steps to this formula, okay? And this is the formula to improve your own mind-muscle connection. The first step is to slow down, because right now, if you are struggling to feel your, lats or biceps or triceps or glutes or calves or whatever muscle you're struggling to feel, the likelihood is that you're more focused on the external variables than the internal variables. And when I say the external variables, I mean stuff like the weight, the position, the reps and the sets and the rest time or whatever, everything that's not the internal feeling that you're chasing, that we want to elicit from each and every rep and each and every set and each and every workout. Does this make sense? So rushing through your set and getting this arbitrary amount of reps done isn't going to help you progress. It's just going to fuel your ego, It's just going to say, oh yeah, I got, 50 reps done on bicep curls today, or 60 kilos on my, bench press, whatever it is, and these are all important things. Reps and sets should be tracked, and I've spoken about progressive overload on this podcast to death before, and we talked about logbooking, and we've talked about tracking your workouts and progressing your strength, but it does not come before your mind-muscle connection. Your mind-muscle connection is the most important thing, right? Because this is what's going to help you to recruit more muscle fibers to get more out of less. So if you can't consciously contract your muscle tissue on demand, or even while you're doing a set and you're just going through the motions and not feeling it, the first thing you do is you slow down and you use time under tension to help you to start building muscle and building a neurological connection between your brain and that muscle you're training. So again, let's go back to bicep curls. If you can't feel your bicep while you're doing a curl, you go slow as hell on the way down of those curls, and you make sure that you can feel that bicep lengthening on the way down. Do 3, 4, 5 second negatives if you need to, and control that way down, and use the time as your that you're putting that muscle under tension as your way to feel the tension, because that will help. You'll start to feel and you'll start to create that neurological network, which will give you a sort of a baseline to say, okay, I know where I'm supposed to be feeling it now. I can feel that. I've got a neurological network built up that tells me where I'm supposed to feel that. And then you've got more of a reference point to be able to pull from that area next time you do a rep. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. I hope I've explained that right. Hopefully it make more sense as I go through step 2 and 3 of the formula. So let's go to step 2. Step 2 is to employ what I like to call muscular functional training. Now, I've done entire podcasts on this before. If you look through the podcast and go listen to the ones on muscular functional training, you'll understand what I mean. And I told the whole story about it and all that sort of stuff. And this is the framework that I sort of designed based on people's work that came before me, like Ben Pekulski and Mark Coles, people like that. And it's nothing that I've particularly invented. It's just something that I've, molded into my own sort of way. And the whole point of this is to find out what a muscle's intended function is. Like, why do we have this muscle on our body? Because it's not just to make it bigger, It's not just to make it more developed. We evolved muscles in certain areas to perform certain movements. So in order to build the muscle, and to develop it and to make it bigger, it would logically make sense that we would perform its intended function and we would just load it, So find out what that muscle's supposed to do. Now for lats, let's take a step back here. In order to find out what that muscle's function is, all you need to do is you need to look at the 2 attachment points that it has, right? Because every muscle has what's called an origin and an insertion, okay? So the origin is like where the muscle what's called originates, so that's where its main attachment points are to bone. And then at the other end of the muscle, that's where it inserts into the other bone. And as we know, right, as it makes logical sense, every muscle pulls bone closer together or further apart. That's what movement is. It's movement of the skeleton, right? So in order to contract a muscle like your lats, then what I had to do was I had to figure out, okay, what is the function of the lat? Why do we have a lat? And I looked at an anatomy chart and I said, okay, so a lat has an origin that's around the lower back area, right? I'm not going to start using ridiculous, overly technical jargon and stuff. So let's just say around the lower back area. It then inserts into the top of the upper arm bone, right? The humerus, if you want to get technical, but it inserts into the top of the upper arm bone. So it would make logical sense then, in order to contract the lats and to make the lats smaller and shorter, we need to get the top of the upper arm bone as close as possible to the lower back. Does that make sense? So what does that look like to you? That looks like a pull down, right? Because at the top of a pull down, your upper arm is separating away from your lower back, and that's why you're stretching the muscle. As you pull the weight down and as you pull your arm closer to your rib cage and your lower back, that upper arm is pulling down towards your lower back and the lats are therefore contracting. So that's what you've got to have in your mind when you're doing a pull down for lats, right? You've got to have those 2 attachment points in your head, and you've got to know that all you're doing is contracting muscle and bringing those 2 attachment points together. And that's the function of the lat, to pull those 2 attachment points together. So the entire reason we've got a muscle there is to allow us that movement. It's to allow us to pull the upper arm closer to the lower back, closer to the rib cage, closer to that area. And so like adducting it to the body, right? So that's applicable to all muscles. That's not just applicable to the lats, it's applicable to the chest and the biceps and the triceps and the glutes and the hamstrings and the quads and the calves and the abs and the traps and the, whatever. It's applicable to everything. So that's the second part of the formula, to find out the function of the muscle and to work it through its intended function. Now, if you want some help with that, you can go and listen to the other podcasts I did on it. But if you want some real help with that, to really get drill down into how to employ muscular functional training in detail with examples, go to trainingmastery.net/join, because we drill into that framework hard in there, and you will level up your mind-muscle connection through that. So that's 2 steps of the formula. The third step of this formula to improve your to improve your mind-muscle connection, there we go, is to find the extremes of the range. Now, the extremes of the range, that sounds a bit of a weird way of putting it, but it's an accurate statement. The extremes of the range essentially mean a fully lengthened and fully contracted position, because that's the extremes of your range of motion on an exercise. Does that make sense? So a fully lengthened lat, because I've got lats in my head now, so let's go with lats. A fully lengthened lat is that top position where you can feel a stretch, right? And notice what I just said there. You can feel a stretch, right? when you go to the top of a pull down or you hang off a pull-up bar, what can you feel? You can feel a stretch in your lats. What is that telling you? That's telling you neurological feedback, building a neurological network to be able to connect with your lats. So you know, when I get a client and I want them to feel their lats, I put them on a lat pull down and I tell them to stretch up to the ceiling. And what can they feel? I ask them what can they feel, because I feel a stretch in the outside of the back, in the lats area. I say, keep that in mind. Remember that feeling and pull from that area. Don't pull from your hands. Don't pull from your arms. Pull from that area. You can feel the stretch. Okay? And if you apply that to chest, if you struggle to feel your chest, you get to the bottom of a dumbbell press or a machine press or a barbell press or whatever, you can feel a stretch and a pull across your chest, right? Because you're pulling the insertion point, which is on the top of humerus, away from the origin point, which is in the center of the sternum. You're pulling those 2 points away from each other, okay? So you should be able to logically feel a stretch. And if you can't, it's probably some sort of biomechanical thing that you need to address, maybe with a chiropractor, maybe just some posture work. But logically, if you get to the bottom of a dumbbell or barbell or machine press something, you should be able to feel a stretch or a pulling sensation across your chest. Now, you remember that feeling and you push from that area. You don't push from where you've got the weight. You don't push from your arm. You push from that area and you go from the extremes of the range. Now, a muscle is much easier to feel in that extreme range because it's weak, right? A strong muscle is in between the two extremes of the range, but a weak muscle is at the extremes of the range, at a fully contracted or fully lengthened position. I recommend finding the fully lengthened position because it's easier to feel. All you have to do is stretch, and then you can feel that stretch, and then you push from that stretch and know that all you're doing from that area is contracting and pulling bones together, right? You're just pulling bones together. And then you pull from that or push from that area and you can feel the muscle contract. And again, it takes time, it takes practice, but once you've got that nailed down, you will not look back and you'll see some serious development in the areas of your body that you're struggling with right now. And if you need some help accelerating this, if you need some help understanding this further, go to trainingmastery.net/join. That's trainingmastery, all one word, .net, .net/join, JOIN. And you can pick up a copy of my online course, Training Mastery, for less than the price of a single personal training session. It's like a week's worth of coffee or something. It's ridiculously cheap right now. It's not going to stay like that forever. Once my audience starts building, things are going to start getting more expensive. So if you are interested in this, jump on it now, get the information in, use it to build your body, because that's what I want. I want as many people as possible to get this information, use it to solve their problems, to build their body, build their confidence, improve their lives, basically. And that's what I want for this. For this podcast, I want this podcast to help people do that. So I hope you found that interesting. I hope you found that valuable. If you did, share it with a friend and pop a little screenshot on your Instagram story or something like that, and tag me in it at AndyClements01. If you listen on YouTube, drop a comment. Let me know what you think, that sort of stuff. That's pretty much it for today. I'm going to go for a walk, have a little bit of steak because gains. And have a great day, and I'll speak to you again soon. Cheers. If you're ready to stop wasting time in the gym and start mastering the skill of muscle building, go check out www.musclebuildingmastery.net to download your free 6-week muscle building workout plan. I have specifically formulated this workout plan to take you through the 3 stages of mastering your body, layering on a more advanced training methodology each week as you progress. That means that regardless of where you are with your training right now, this plan will push you forward and help you stack on more muscle and strength in just 6 weeks. So head to www.musclebuildingmastery.net now to grab your free 6-week workout plan.